Hello, my darling friends. Dave Makes Noises here. I just wanted to thank you for all of the love and support this past year. I believe this video marks the 1-year anniversary of my joining the Ripper family, and we have gained over 100,000 subs since then. I have no words other than thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my warm Canadian heart. Y'all have carried me through one of the most challenging, unprecedented, and exciting years of my entire life, and I am overwhelmed with gratitude for every single one of you sweet little goofballs. I love you all so much. I'm so glad you exist. I still can't believe I get to do this. This is so cool. That's all I wanted to cover for the intro. Now, players and DMs of Reddit, what are some of your stories with that player? Part 1. Hello, DM here. I've been running a long campaign over about a year and a half, and we have some odd cases within our group. Some like the evil warlord turned farmer, to a druid who has yet to kill a man, to even a 16-year-old farm boy who just wants to go home. However, one player's first character was quite that player. The first obvious signs is that he often separated himself from the party, then complained that he had no party interaction. Second, he was a murder hobo. This particular character had 2 shining moments of, what the hell, man? The first was a while ago within the campaign, near the halfway point of the story. They were somewhere around level 7, 8. This character, through backstory shenanigans, was wanted by a place called the Empire, a giant militaristic country. They wanted to capture her, he played a female character, and bring her to the throne of the king. The king sent out his head of bounty hunters, who happened to be his third son. While the party was resting and having fun, this character, who I will call X for simplicity, was off training by herself. The third son, named Gungari, came up to the party and began speaking to the head PC and a few tag-along NPCs. He asked one of the players if he'd seen X, and gave them a summary of what happened. X overhears this, comes up and introduces herself to the man who wanted to capture her. Party, of course, freaks out as they don't want to be arrested again, later story, and try to deny this, saying, haha, funny joke, and the like, but X insisted that she was who Gungari was looking for. Gungari, a cocky man, decides to make a simple bet. We fight. I win, everyone comes with me quietly. You win, and I won't bother you again. X accepts, despite the party's interjections. What follows can only be called a one-sided massacre. Despite being a solid 6 levels above X, he loses. After the battle, Gungari drops to the floor and admits defeat. However, X wasn't done. She then proceeded to cut off his head. I and the fellow PCs were completely shocked. I, however, let it happen, as this was her victory. The party freaks out, and the head PC, who was a druid, was unable to revive Gungari, because he wasn't high enough level to fix it. Second story took place maybe 2 to 3 sessions later and had great consequences. After saving a burning village and killing a fire elemental, the party leaves the town. Towards the night, X and the druid both see something rustling in the bushes behind them. The druid walks a fair bit away and wild shapes into a snake. He slithers around looking when he is shot by an arrow. It turns out 2 of the now homeless and orphaned sisters, 11 and 8, had followed them. The druid readies himself to cast a spell, but hesitates on seeing who shot him. X, on the other hand, prepared a spell. Follows as a conversation burned into my mind. To you kids, I'm a god. Leave now, or I'll kill you. X's player asks to make an intimidation check, 19. The 2 children make saves. The younger, about a 7, while the elder crits the check. Can't crit an ability check. 11-year-old.
You're no god. You don't intimidate me.
X, damn shame then. He turns to me and says he casts Blight at 5th level. I give him the old, are you sure talk, but he is 100% in it. The druid, freaked out, attempts to counterspell it, only to realize he unattuned to his ring of counterspell earlier that session. So with horror in everyone but X's player's eyes, I read aloud what the spell did to humans and asked him to roll damage. The save was impossible unless she crit ability check, which she didn't. 9d8 necrotic damage. The bare minimum would have knocked her out, but he rolled damage anyway. 2 away from max damage. The girl shriveled up into a husk and dropped to the floor, dead. The youngest screamed at the top of her lungs, alerting the rest of the party. X turned to the other girl, preparing Blight again, but at 4th level. But both the druid and the wizard, who rushed to the screaming, stepped in the way. His fate was sealed. What followed was the most violent PvP battle my group has had ever. 5 PCs and 1 NPC versus X. In the end, X died and ended that character's tyrannical campaign. You know, until he rolls up a new character who was exactly the same as the old one, just a better class and stats. I could go into the new character, but this story's long enough. TLDR, players can be very interesting if you let things go the natural course. This wasn't at a table, but was at a card shop, just hanging out, and the conversation drifted to D&D, and we started telling each other about our characters. One person was playing an Aasimar cleric that hates the undead, the other person was a high elf necromancer, and he proceeded to start a real argument and berating the other person for his character's hatred of undead, trying to convince the player that necromancy was a legit school of magic, even though the player himself was fine with it, it was just his cleric that hated undead. TLDR, person started a real argument and personal offense over another person's in-game character's personal beliefs. Had a player actively cheat with D6s that only had 2s and 6s printed on them. He used a brutal 2 weapon, reroll any die that lands on 2. Had another who would upstage anyone at any time if he wasn't the focus. And a third who couldn't be arsed to remember his stuff, his sheets, or what his items did. DM finally ruled that if you don't remember, it doesn't exist. The rogue in our party, now wizard, was an annoying fuck to play with. He metagamed the shit out of everything, looks for the stats of the monsters, killed NPCs for the lulz, and was, in general, a dick who wanted to win D&D. Well, the moment that annoyed me the most was when my vengeance paladin was facing his sworn enemy in combat. I spent 3 months of the campaign just talking about this guy who I wanted to kill, actively looking for him, finding him by myself, and managed to 1v1 him in combat, while forced by a wizard, dealing massive crits to him. 3 critical hits, with level 3 Divine Smites, and 1 with level 1 Divine Smite. The guy was bleeding and begging for his life when the wizard lost concentration. Rogue proceeded to prepare his action for an uncertain moment, and just before I get the last hit, I was in mid-speech of how he killed my mother, my adoptive family, and such. He says, "I want to use my action," and proceeds to stab him, while sending me a private message in real life telling me, "Haha, I killed him and you didn't." Just to add, I am not friends with this guy, and I just met him at the table. Then, before my paladin could kill him, I was going to, he does something that ended up killing his character. He talked to the DM about changing character, and I was just left there, with a goalless paladin of vengeance. Ended up retiring that character in a very disappointing moment. That player still plays with us, and just can't let others shine. He just has to make it about how he helped, or how he did that crucial thing that allowed us to win. It's not so much this particular player is an irritant to the whole group, he just seems to rustle my jimmies as a fellow player. He's playing a tiefling necromancer sorcerer and has a reanimated skeleton follow him around. He is affectionately named Gerald. There have been several occasions when he announces Gerald is going to seduce X. As it is a fantasy game, it holds no actual problems. However, it's when he is informed he cannot seduce, such as during our previous session, he gets problematic and tries to derail the session, explaining how a skeleton could become a dragon's paramour. I spoke to him after the session, being like, "So, instead of making your thrall do it, why didn't Zaros attempt to seduce the dragon?" "Because Gerald wanted to, because he's a horny skeleton." "Why didn't you make Thor try to seduce it?" "Because he didn't want to and was trying to move on to the next chamber." He often threatens to make a bard that seduces everything in sight, with the only thing stopping him would be him acting it out for his entire family and the group chat to hear. We had one player whose necromancer was just a burden to deal with. They were undead and evil, but what's worse is that they were just stupid. I am the group's note taker, so I have an almost complete log of everything this person did. The longer the story, the dumber. They freely gave out secret information about our job to one of the only people in the world who it would have been a bad idea to tell about it. Something immediately apparent to everyone but this necromancer. This caused our pay to get docked and us to get forced into another job to make amends. I tried to intimidate a harbor master into giving us their ship logs. It was working. Then the necromancer tried to steal them right in front of him and started combat. They got downed in the first turn before they could even act. The player metagamed and attacked someone we had no reason to be aggressive toward, trying to push him off a lighthouse, failing, and started combat. This ended up destroying a small port town. They saw a jeweled skull on a table in a trap-filled dungeon and decided to pick it up, unleashing a flame skull on our low-level party. Then, after defeating it and making it inert, they took the skull with us. It wasn't dead though, only dormant, so a little while later it burst into flame inside their backpack and forced us to fight it again. During our first boss encounter, they decided to follow up our paladin's crit smite by using inflict wounds, despite our warnings that necrotic damage likely healed this monster, and lo and behold, we were right, and its wounds started closing up. The monster then picked them up, and in their flailing, the necromancer managed to hit himself. They killed 2 innocent people and tried to raise their fresh corpses and prostitute them for money, then stole the dog that belonged to one of them. This was just so wildly uncomfortable that she and the DM only spoke in vague terms, and the rest of us didn't know what happened for several weeks, by which point the DM retconned any of that from happening and made it clear that would never happen again. That behavior was part of the character's backstory, not a spur-of-the-moment thing. We managed to kill a high-ranking member of a global conspiracy. We knew their plan was to plunge the world into endless night for an ancient eldritch god. We had killed this individual as they tried to kidnap a paladin who happened to be the necromancer's brother. They were the only one with Speak with Dead, and the cleric uses Zone of Truth so we could get some important answers. They proceeded to use every single one of our questions on things we already knew. 2 of which were just asking for clarifications on things that we already knew. We lost our chance to get any information at all. My character literally got more useful information out of a captured grunt I intimidated a few moments later without any spells, which forced him to answer and do so truthfully. This is the big one. After this, the party actively looked for chances to get rid of them. We were trying to rob a bank. Because they had high dex and charisma, we had them accompany the rogue to stake out the bank manager's mansion. First thing they do is trip out of the bush they're hiding in and bump straight into the bank manager. Now, that's bad luck with the dice, so we don't mind. We offered dozens of ways they could talk their way out of it. Pretend to be drunk and homeless. Pretend to be hiding for the homeless since they're dressed well and just act like a rich asshole, etc. Instead, they decide the most subtle way to get out of this is strip naked and pretend to be insane. Our poor rogue has to RP his heart out to come up with an excuse why he's trying to guide the naked lunatic away, why they're not in the same asylum, who he is, and what his business in the city is, all of which requiring good deception rolls and creativity. It was exhausting just to listen to, as all the while we were trying to get the necromancer to make just a single rational decision, but they consistently ignored our suggestions and came up with new, fascinatingly bad ideas of how to recover. 2 sessions later, immediately after completing the bank heist, our poor rogue drops out of the campaign entirely. A little while later, we find wanted posters of all of us. Most are drawn unrecognizably poorly, but the necromancers is a perfect recreation because their insanity was so memorable that they could be described in perfect detail. They forgot where the invisible NPC ally was standing and ran into them twice in a single encounter, knocking them over and dropping the invisibility. They attuned to a powerful magic artifact and immediately got possessed by it. They spent the remainder of their life trying to convince us to let them have it again and making pathetic attempts to get it back. They once even made a crude, unconvincing replica and tried to swap them while we slept. Not only did everyone wake up, but they made the replica knowing that I was watching them the whole time. Here is the final mistake that ended their reign of incompetent terror. We were entering a druid sanctuary. We had ruined the reputation of the NPC guiding us in every city we'd passed through to this point. We had, in all likelihood, ruined his livelihood already. This place, however, was run by an archdruid, and the 2 were in love. It also only had 3 rules: no fighting, pay the entrance tithe, and no undead. In character, none of us knew that they were undead, so we couldn't say anything. They left their zombies outside the sanctuary, but still entered themselves. They were very quickly found out, and a level 20 Circle of the Shepherd druid chased us out of town with elementals, plant creatures, wild animals, druid allies, and a huge stone dragon construct. We barely managed to salvage relations with them because I speared the necromancer through the heart myself as we ran, using my magic javelin. Still, they were ritualistically killed, the rest of us were banished for life, and we did significant damage to the happy relationship of our favorite NPC. TLDR, a high charisma character, is played by someone who couldn't RP to save their life and routinely derails the party's plans, and nobody was sorry to see them die. Salutations, my sweet cosmic fritters of infinitely interconnecting consciousness, and thank you for attuning your beautiful focus to this video to the very end. Just a couple of quick announcements. First off, please check out our subreddit, r/MrRipper, where we source stories all the time for these videos. There are a boatload of threads to fit your story into. Otherwise, you can always just post a longer form story as a standalone, and maybe it'll get picked for an upcoming video. You'll basically be famous. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group, we've designed a specialized Discord server for you to find your group, break off, and start dungeoning some god-dang dragons for yourself. As always, please check out our Sunday streams here on the channel where we tell stories, shoot the breeze, and usually have a laugh with Rip Daddy himself. We go live every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT, rain, shine, heck, or high water. Now, for a bigger announcement, the Wednesday D&D stream has been migrated to the Fire and Dice Twitch channel. Now, this is for a couple reasons. Mainly, it's that Rip Daddy is building himself a studio because, given the significant time zone gap, he can't really stream for more than a couple of hours with us without disturbing his entire family for the entire night. So, in favor of a more thorough gaming experience for everybody playing and a better show for all you sweetie pies at home, we have migrated to Twitch, and Rip will be joining us periodically as a guest until his studio is all set up, at which point he will rejoin us on our adventures. Stream length will increase, production value will continue to shoot through the roof thanks to BetterBox, highlight videos and recaps are becoming a thing, and it would mean the world to us and to Rip Daddy to have your support as we build this thing up. As well, please check out Knowledge with Nolan. New episodes every Saturday. We got a couple of really great episodes in the can for you this week. Really excited to share them with you. I hope you are enjoying the veritable smorgasbord of delicious tabletop gaming content we've been bringing you. Thank you again for being a part of the best year of my life. I hope you are practicing awareness in your daily routine. It is a powerful way to break through the repetitious algorithm of regularity. We love you so much here at Rip Daddy's house. Please sub for Nat 20s. Thanks again for watching and commenting. Stay hydrated out there, you incredible bipedal meat whistle you. We'll see you tomorrow.